friends, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's your girl Olivia. I am so sorry I've been gone for like 2 weeks. It's been a lot, very stressful, but we're here and we're back with another spooky video. Also, if you think I look like Lord Farquaad, I don't know what to tell you, because I do. I look like Lord Farquaad. So you can go ahead and roast me in the comments if you want to. But today we're going to be talking about the most haunted place in all of New Orleans. That's right, the LaLaurie Mansion located on Royal Street.
Bonsoir, my pets. Did you all miss me?
I am Madame Marie Delphine LaLaurie. And you're nothing.
Now, if you're familiar with American Horror Story, specifically the Coven season, then you kind of already know the basics behind this story. If you don't worry, I'll fill you in. But this mansion has a really disturbing history, so a trigger warning for like slavery and torture and murder and all of the disgustingness that goes along with it. So if you get triggered by any of that, maybe don't watch this video. Okay. Now, back in the 1830s, Marie Delphine McCarty married Dr. keep in mind he's a doctor, Leonard Louis Nicholas LaLaurie, who was actually like 20 years younger than her. Keep in mind, she'd already been widowed twice, and they both died mysteriously. So who knows, did she really poison them, or did they actually just like die of natural causes? It's a little sus, okay? Now, this is back when slavery was still a thing, and thankfully in Louisiana, they did have laws against hurting your slaves, like torturing them, but I don't think Madame LaLaurie really cared about the laws because of what she did. So, the LaLauries were actually very infamous for how many slaves they had and how often they rotated them. People took lots of notice on how slaves didn't really last very long at their house. No one really knew what happened to the slaves, nor did they think it was anything malicious, but they took quite a lot of notice on how often their slaves changed. Fast forward in time, Madame LaLaurie and her husband get divorced. He dips. I mean, it was inevitable. This is her third husband. Granted, the first two did die, but she's kind of psycho, so I can understand why this man dipped real quick. Now she's left alone in this giant house with all of these slaves. What people didn't know is that behind closed doors, she treated her slaves so terribly. One day, one of the children's slaves, that was like a 12-year-old little girl named Leah, was brushing her hair when all of a sudden she hit a snag in her hair, and Madame LaLaurie freaked out and chased this little girl around her house with a whip up the very top of the roof, and the girl ended up jumping off the roof of the house in order to avoid getting punished, and she fell to her death. Granted, a lot of people saw this happening with her on the roof with the whip. And so what did they do? Well, thankfully, as I said before, Louisiana had a lot of laws on not punishing or like torturing your slaves. So investigators came, saw what happened, and took away 9 of her slaves. Granted, she was still left with quite a few slaves, but she was sneaky. When they sold her slaves off, she actually found a way to get her family members to buy the slaves back for her and give them back to her. So she really didn't lose anything. She just lost 9 slaves and some public image. That was really it. But what they find out later is even worse. So amongst the slaves in her household, they all knew that if you got sent up to the attic, you were donezo. Like, you were never coming back. And she had this cook that she kept chained to the stove. Literally chained to the stove, like couldn't go to bed, just had to stand there and cook for her whenever. She was like 70. And one day the cook, I guess, made her angry and she threatened to take her upstairs. So instead of getting taken and tortured, she decided to unalive herself and set the house on fire, which actually did quite a bit of good for the rest of the slaves, because when the house caught on fire, it exposed part of the attic where all of these people had been tortured and killed. And when people came into the house to come and help and get everybody out, they found so many slaves in this attic. Trigger warning, just FYI. When they got to the attic, they found dozens of slaves naked, chained to the walls, put in cages. One woman had her stomach slit open and her intestines were wrapped around her waist like a corset. Another woman had animal feces shoved in her mouth and then it was sewn shut. Other people had really weirdly deformed bodies where she had broken their bones and had them grow back in very odd manners. A man had a stick drilled into his head where she would like go in and rearrange his brain, kind of like a lobotomy. I don't know if she wanted to be like a mad scientist or just a sadistic, crazy serial killer, but she would torture these people so terribly. And when the townspeople found them like this, some of them were still alive, a lot of them were dead, but they went ballistic. Everyone in the town came after Madame LaLaurie and chased her out of town, where she ended up going back to France. When they ravaged this whole entire house after she had left, they found people chained up under the floorboards. Some of them were still alive. Thank God they were able to get out of there. But they were chained up under the floorboards, and years later, they even found dead bodies put into the walls. Like, this woman killed so many people. It's so disturbingly disgusting. But I can't believe like this even actually happened. I feel like she was like the first like female serial killer in America. I could be wrong on that, but like it's disgusting. This gives me like, makes me want to vomit like hearing this. It's so gross. The reason I originally looked up this topic was just because of the cool ghost stories behind it, but when I found out this whole disturbing dark history, I felt like I had to share that with you guys too. So we're gonna move on to the ghost stories now, because I don't want to talk about disemboweled bodies anymore, thank you. So after Madame LaLaurie was chased back to France, years went by, she eventually died in France, and that was the end of her story. But the house still existed and was resold to several different people. They all complained of like moans and screams coming from the attic area, and they could hear chains and all sorts of things, so people didn't really stay there very long. Eventually it was turned into a school, and it's really messed up as the kind of school it was. It didn't really last very long, but it was an all-girls school for black girls. And segregation and shit, you know, that stuff happened back then. But what's really messed up is that I guess the ghost of Madame LaLaurie haunts that house today and the grounds around it. And these poor girls would report to their teachers about really mysterious injuries they would get. They would have crazy bruises all over their bodies, and they would show them these scratch marks in their arms. And when the teachers would ask the girls who did this to them, they would all say it was the woman with the red hair. And Madame LaLaurie was well known for her red hair. Eventually, in the later 1870s, it was turned into an apartment complex, which was very popular amongst families and immigrants. One family in particular, their children would report constantly hearing screaming like someone was being set on fire, moaning coming from upstairs, chains rattling, walls shaking, a bunch of crazy stuff. But the parents all just took it as, oh, it's their child's active imagination, and kind of brushed it off. Until one day the dad came home and saw a big black man covered in chains standing at the front of the apartment complex, which used to be the front door to the house. He kindly asked the man to move out of his way, but the man just stood there staring at him with a blank stare on his face. He then decided to go up and try to push the man out of the way so he can get through, and his hands went straight through the man. The man dissolved into thin air right in front of his eyes. Really weird. Other accounts from tenants in the apartment complex talked about how they would have terrible nightmares and wake up to a woman standing over their bed with long red hair yelling at them to get out. That sounds like Madame LaLaurie again. No. Fast forward to 1894, where a man was brutally murdered in one of the apartments inside the LaLaurie Mansion. And they ended up taking it as a robbery gone wrong type of murder, where they said a bunch of stuff was just like strewn all around his apartment, but nothing of value was actually missing. His friend did attest, saying that the man was kind of going crazy, saying that sprites were following him around, which is, if you know what sprites are, I'll put like a description right here. It's like an Irish legend, which you could also attribute to like orbs of like ghosts. He also said that there was a demonic entity that was haunting him, and he said that it wouldn't rest until it got his soul, which in turn he did die. So did the demon eat his soul? I don't know. It's giving me like Demon Slayer vibes. I don't know. But it's just creepy. The apartment complex ended up closing down because of all the craziness that went on there, and the ownership of the house changed hands many times over the years. Eventually, in like 2008, I think it was, Nicolas Cage bought the mansion. He also then had to forfeit it because he had to file bankruptcy and his career kind of like tanked. Locals said it was like the curse of the mansion, so now he's doing pretty well after he sold the house. I don't know. The house is currently owned by an LA movie producer named Michael Whalen. I don't know what he's gonna do with the house. Hopefully, maybe he tears it down. I think respectfully, it should just be demolished and have something else built there, like a memorial or something. I don't know. It's just not a place I think I would ever want to visit. It's just a really crazy house and I am never gonna go there. But that's all I got for you guys today. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and leave a comment down below of anything you want. If you guys have a cool paranormal topic you want me to talk about, or a conspiracy theory, or an urban legend, I don't care, anything spooky related, leave it down below because I want to learn about more things and talk to you guys about them. If you haven't clicked Harold the Space Ghost over here, give him a little high five with your mouse and subscribe to my channel. You can also do that in the comment box below too. But that's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out. Bye!